Hey, it's Bon, and today I want to talk a little bit about Baldur's Gate 3, Larian, and how they have said that they're basically done with the game. Before then, if you like Baldur's Gate 3, if you like Larian's games, if you like video games in general, and news and speculation about them, please consider subscribing to this channel. Comment down below if you have thoughts about this video, and hit the like button if you like it. If you really want to support, consider becoming a YouTube member that supports these videos. You get early access to them. It also supports my two podcasts and my stream. All right, so getting into the actual video, at GDC this week, the Game Developers Conference, it was a pretty newsworthy show, it seems like, specifically with Larian and Baldur's Gate 3. We got some pretty blunt news from Sven, who's the owner of the company, and where he basically came out and said that they won't be doing DLC for Baldur's Gate 3. They won't be doing Baldur's Gate 4, and their next project is going to be something different, something original from them. He also said, and this has been a bit misconstrued, I think, he's alluded to one of their next projects being even bigger than Baldur's Gate 3 and being the biggest thing that they've ever made, to the point of like insinuating it would make Baldur's Gate 3 look small, which is wild because I would argue that Baldur's Gate 3 is like too big for like the majority of players. That isn't the next project, or at least from what I read and saw. He's insinuating that the game after their next one will be this big giant epic. So I wouldn't be surprised if they actually do a smaller experience for this next game as kind of a like a relaxed game after Baldur's Gate, which it was such a huge undertaking really for any studio. Now my feelings about the lack of DLC and things like that, it's complicated, right? I do believe that Baldur's Gate 3 is a pretty tight package. I think that you get a really good experience anywhere from a 60 to 100 hour playthrough, and some people get into the hundreds of hours in one playthrough. I don't really know how, but they do, and that's fine. I really like the characters in Baldur's Gate 3. Shadowheart was initially one of my favorite ones, and I still like her a lot. I've really come to like Gale. I think as you explore his story and his situation more, and I haven't even done everything you can do with Gale yet. I really think that voice actor and whoever wrote that character just did such a good job of like presenting as real feeling of a human as I think I've ever felt in a game, which is really cool. He very much reminds me of kind of how I felt about like Garrus in Mass Effect, where he's like the best bro, right? At least for my character. So I think I selfishly, personally wanted DLC in a Baldur's Gate 4, hoping to continue those things. But realistically, especially DLC, like what would they do, right? And there's lots of things they could do, I guess, right? But I think we're good. I think we're in a moment where we're gonna realize that Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be this nice moment in gaming where someone just put out a good game and they supported it and they fixed it up and they added little things and stuff, but they didn't release 20 DLCs for it. They didn't support it for 10 years because they didn't have to, and they moved on to their next thing. Larian's next thing could suck. It could be awful, right? Or it could be kind of obscure like the previous games they had before Baldur's Gate 3. But I really believe that it's okay for Baldur's Gate 3 to just be this moment. I selfishly would love to have more time with these characters and do more things with them, but really I can just go back and play. There is the added, situation of even just today, I'm recording this on Friday, March 22nd. Where Sven's come out and clarified a little bit. And while there's no DLC and there's not going to be a sequel, at least not for now, to Baldur's Gate 3, he said that they're going to be adding the mod support, and that they do plan to add some more in-game cinematics and stuff. I assume they're going to flesh out some of the endings, but very specifically said no new content. So if you were hoping for Minthara to get maybe her own personal quest or something a little more deep, probably not happening. If you were hoping for more in-depth things for any of the characters. We're probably not getting that. Could be modded. The issue I have with mods for this game is it would be so hard for any mod team to make content of the same quality as what Larian has put into this game, especially, you know, narratively. You know, the writing is going to be hard to replicate. Obviously, getting the voice actors in voice acting would be tough, right? And we really, at least I really don't want to see people do the AI stuff where they, for lack of a better term, steal the voices from the characters and their performances. So I'm mixed. I think it is probably the best bet for Larian to move on. I suspect they're going to continue development on Baldur's Gate 3 for probably another year or so when it comes to bug fixing, things like that, tightening up some of these things that they've talked about, doing the mod implementation and so on. So it's interesting, Sven has become quite the figure amongst gaming communities and journalists and so on. He's been pretty outspoken about his thoughts on layoffs and how the big publishers work and stuff like that. There's even some suspicion that this move with Baldur's Gate 3 and especially with the Baldur's Gate 4 has a lot to do with some pretty awful corporate handling by Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, the owner and the subsidiary that kind of run the Dungeons and Dragons brand, and that maybe they wouldn't have continued Baldur's Gate 3 or done Baldur's Gate 4 no matter what, but it seems like some corporate practices and behaviors by the owners of D&D have likely soured them on the idea. The final thing I will say is that I think the real knife in the heart for me was when they came out and said that, oh yeah, we started a Baldur's Gate 3 DLC and then we canceled it, and the entire studio was elated because our hearts weren't really in it. And it's like, obviously, like I said before, the selfish part of me is like, no, that means that there was at least ideas. But then at the same time, if those ideas didn't really motivate them, then that's fine. I don't think people realize how tiring it must be for these studios to work on one title for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And then, obviously the fans want more. But it's got to be hard from a development side. And you're talking about how there's a decent chance that a majority of their studio, their entire experience has been Baldur's Gate. So it shouldn't surprise people that people want to work on other games. When I've known people in other studios like Ubisoft Massive who have been working on The Division for over 10 years. And when they had the opportunity to go work on Star Wars Outlaws, the vast majority of them were probably elated to do that because they were getting to work on a legendary brand. They were getting to get away from this IP that they had worked so much on, no matter how much they loved it. And I think that is a factor here as well, that they probably want to expand their creativity a bit. And I wouldn't be surprised at all, though, if they take a lot of lessons from Baldur's Gate 3. And at this point, I think we can hope that they release more games with characters who are equally loving and sincere and awesome to interact with and play with, and stories that are fun and exciting and have depth and worlds that are all the same. So while selfishly I am a little bit bummed about this news, I think in the overall sense it's probably a good thing for everyone involved. And I think in the long run we'll look back and say Baldur's Gate 3 was a moment. It's really cool that exists. It's still here. You can still play it whenever you want. But them moving on was probably the right move. So let me know what you think about that down in the comments. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to it. And again, if you want to support this and my other content, consider becoming a YouTube member for a couple bucks a month. You can find me as Bond Diesel all over the internet, including over on Twitch, where I do stream a couple times a month at this point, hopefully more soon. You can check out my 2 podcasts, the Bonfire Podcast, a weekly gaming news show, and the Mass Effect Hypecast, a occasional show talking about the next Mass Effect game. And I I think that's all I have for this one. So until next time.